What's up, you beautiful bastards? I'm Phil DeFranco. I'm gonna do we're gonna talk about the news. Let's just jump into it.
What are you doing with your eyes?
Another Wednesday, another PDS host I have to fire. Call me Carson. There seemed to be so much promise in those moments between him just trolling me the entire time. But despite that unfortunate firing, if you'd like to watch my brand new podcast with Carson King, it just went up right before this video over at youtube.com/aconvowith. I do one every Wednesday. They're kind of my new favorite thing. And I will say, this one was one of my favorite to shoot because I legitimately did not know what to expect. I was very interested. Main point. Go watch that after today's show. But with that said, buckle up, hit that like button. Let's hope my voice lasts till the end of today's show, and let's just jump into it. I can't talk like I normally do. It feels like this is the ASMR PDS. And the first thing we're going to talk about today are actually some quickies. This week you might have seen that you had people seemingly shocked that Billie Eilish, who of course is a massive singer, songwriter right now, that she, even though she is a musician, had no idea who Van Halen was.
Can you name a Van Halen?
Who?
I'm gonna start crying.
And my response to that is, what did you expect? She's 17 years old. She was born after people were scared about Y2K and 9/11 happened. And she admitted this during a segment on Kimmel, which was essentially just a prolonged I'm so old joke. Where she's also not familiar with Run DMC, the Cabbage Patch Kids. She's never watched Ghostbusters. But I mentioned this quickie because what I really loved seeing was Eddie Van Halen's son, Wolf Van Halen, tweeted, if you haven't heard of Billie Eilish, go check her out. She's cool. If you haven't heard of Van Halen, go check them out. They're cool too. Music is supposed to bring us together, not divide us. Listen to what you want and don't shame others for not knowing what you like. I co-sign that just 1,000%. Also, a quickie in the news world, Spotify announced the top songs, artists, playlists of 2019, which I found interesting because, you know, there are always all these award shows, but ultimately, who is consuming your music? How much are they consuming it? That's kind of a big differentiator. And granted, this is only Spotify, but there we saw the 3 most streamed artists: Post Malone, Billie Eilish, and Ariana Grande. Oh, I can't say Grande. And Ariana Grande. Though the most streamed song this year actually came from none of the top 3, and instead was Señorita by Camila Cabello and Shawn Mendes. And there's some other interesting data there, but I'm gonna end this before I have to say Ariana Grande again. Hey, I did it! And then let's talk about this now international incident around a viral video clip that I saw someone fantastically refer to as seeming to be like a clip from the Real Housewives of NATO. Now the video in question is a 25-second clip showing Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, French President Emmanuel Macron, and Prime Minister Mark Rutte of the Netherlands huddled together chatting. And there also appears to be a 5th in the circle whose face is never fully seen. Many believe that it's British Royal Princess Anne, Queen Elizabeth II's daughter. And notably, this video was released just hours after a tense meeting between Trump and Macron, in which, as we talked about yesterday, the French and American president took shots at one another involving Turkey and things associated with it. Now, following the release of this video, there were a lot of reactions. Some saying this is just outright disrespectful of Trudeau. Others saying this is just a candid showcasing of how ridiculous other world leaders think Trump is. Right, so that's happening online. But then the next thing that we see reporters ask Trump about the video on Wednesday.
Do you have a video of Prime Minister Trudeau talking about you last night?
Well, he's two-faced. And honestly, with Trudeau, he's a nice guy. I find him to be a very nice guy. But, you know, the truth is that I called him out on the fact that he's not paying 2%. And I guess he's not very happy about it.
As far as Trudeau's response, he initially ignored questions by reporters regarding the video, though he did later publicly admit that he was indeed talking about Trump in his comments. And so while Trudeau owned up to the comments, although seemingly that the last part about the jaws dropping seemed to be kind of minimizing might be the nicest word to use there, but also with Trudeau going on to say that he has a very good relationship with Trump. But yeah, ultimately that's the story as it is now, and really I'm just left with a feeling of, man, I would really like to see more candid footage of world leaders interacting. Right, a real look behind the curtain. We'll probably have to wait until they come out with books once they're no longer in office. Yeah, ultimately with this story and then that video clip, what are your thoughts on them? From that, I want to share some stuff I love today and today and awesome, brought to you by Ridge.com/DeFranco. And the Ridge, if you don't know, is a fantastic minimal front pocket wallet that's slim, RFID blocking, and lifetime guaranteed. It comes in titanium, carbon fiber, aluminum, and polycarbonate, and on top of all of that, there are tons of different styles and colors to choose from, making it the perfect gift for anyone in your life. And its awesome sleek design has to be what I love most. It has two metal plates bound together by a durable elastic band, so it's easy to put in what you want, get out what you want. On top of all that, they've got phone cases, durable charging cables, power banks, knives, and even weatherproof backpacks, duffel bags, and travel kits. And with over 30,000 5-star reviews and free returns, Ridge has got you covered, whether you're upgrading your own gear or getting the perfect gift for someone else. So head on over to Ridge.com/DeFranco and make sure you use code DeFranco to get 10% off and free worldwide shipping today. And the first bit of awesome today is something I'm so excited about. If you've watched the show for the past few years, you know that one of the things that I've recommended the most is the movie Train to Busan. I believe it's still on Netflix. We're getting news today that Train to Busan 2 Peninsula is coming out August 12th, 2020. So one, if you were a fan of the original, get excited, but also, of course, as a sequel, get a little bit nervous. And two, for those that have still not watched it, fix it right now. Then we got the new James Bond trailer, No Time to Die, where we actually got a first look at Rami Malek. We had Adam Sandler talking to Howard Stern about getting fired from SNL. Then Lessons from the Screenplay gave us The Last of Us, The Art of Video Game Storytelling. We got the Honest trailer for It Chapter 2. And if you want to see the full versions of everything I just shared, the secret link of the day, really anything at all, links as always are in the description down below. Then we should talk about George Zimmerman is back in the news. This because we're now seeing reports that he's suing not only the prosecutors involved in the case over the shooting of Trayvon Martin, but he is now also suing Martin's family. And the shooting, if you don't remember, happened in Florida back in 2012. According to reports, the night that he died, Martin had been walking home after buying candy and a drink at a gas station. Meanwhile, you had Zimmerman, who was patrolling a gated community. He called police to report a suspicious-looking person in a dark hoodie. Reportedly during that call, Zimmerman said that Martin started running. He then followed Martin, even though the dispatcher on the line told him not to. Soon after that, Zimmerman and Martin reportedly ended up in a fight, with Zimmerman ultimately shooting and killing Martin, who was only 17 at the time. And following this, Zimmerman was arrested, charged with second-degree murder. But ultimately, what we ended up seeing was Zimmerman was acquitted in 2013 after claiming self-defense. Throughout the years, there have been a number of other things, other stories, but ultimately what we're doing today is we're jumping to today to look at this lawsuit, because according to reports, he and his lawyers are alleging defamation, saying that Martin's family and their prosecutors have worked in concert to deprive Zimmerman of his constitutional and other legal rights. And this because he is specifically claiming that the case rested on false evidence. Also, his suit actually cites information from a documentary titled The Trayvon Hoax, which also accuses the Martin family of engaging in false testimony. And on top of all of that, Zimmerman is also suing HarperCollins after it released a book titled Open Season, Legalized Genocide of Colored People, which was written by Ben Crump, the lawyer who represented Martin's family in the case against Zimmerman. And this story was coming out as we were filming today's show, and so initially, Zimmerman's lawyers were expected to hold a press conference giving more details about the lawsuit. It was reportedly supposed to happen at noon tomorrow at Coral Gables Art Cinema, and then at 1 p.m. the Trayvon Hoax would play, but that establishment's Twitter account then tweeted, Coral Gables Art Cinema was not aware of all the details surrounding this event and has made a decision to cancel it. So we'll see what happens there. As far as any response from the other side here, we've seen Crump saying in a statement, I have every confidence that this unfounded and reckless lawsuit will be revealed for what it is, another failed attempt to defend the indefensible and a shameless attempt to profit off the lives and grief of others. Yeah, ultimately that's where we are. We're gonna have to wait to see what else comes from this, and of course, I would love to know your thoughts on this story. And then let's talk about China, the United States, and the Uyghurs. Now, we've talked about the Uyghurs before on the show a few times, but for some quick background, they are an ethnic Muslim minority group that live in China's Xinjiang region. In recent years, China has massively ramped up its control over that region. The Chinese government has implemented surveillance systems all over, filling major cities with surveillance cameras and using AI face and voice recognition technologies to track people. But that's also not even the worst part. The Chinese government has also detained upwards of 1 million Uyghurs in internment camps. Numerous reports, as well as both public and leaked Chinese government documents, show that the Uyghurs are detained against their will in these camps, where, among other things, they are forced to learn Mandarin, swear loyalty to President Xi, and renounce their faith. There have also been numerous reports of torture and other human rights abuses, and China, which originally denied the existence of these camps, now claims that they're basically vocational boarding schools, right? Saying it's not any of that bad stuff. We're helping the Uyghurs by giving them job training and education skills. jails, also saying that this is a safe way to combat terrorism. But you have human rights groups in countries all over the world saying that that's essentially BS, saying these camps are mass incarceration systems against an ethnic minority and a huge violation of human rights. And that's actually why we're talking about this today. Yesterday, the U.S. House passed a bill called the Uyghur Human Rights Policy Act of 2019 with a vote of 407 to 1. Right, and this comes a few months after the Senate passed a similar version of this bill back in September. And according to the text of the bill, the purpose of the act is, quote, to direct United States resources to address gross violations of universally recognized human rights, including the mass internment of over 1 million Uyghurs and other Muslim minorities in the region. The act also accuses the Chinese government of having policies that have systematically discriminated against the Uyghurs, including pervasive high-tech surveillance across the region, including the arbitrary collection of biodata, such as DNA samples from children without their knowledge or consent, the use of QR codes outside homes to gather information on how frequently individuals pray, facial and voice recognition software and predictive policing databases, and severe restrictions on the freedom of movement across the region. The bill also accusing China of using the threat of terrorism as a justification for pervasive restrictions on and gross human rights violations against the ethnic minority communities. And so if implemented, this act would do a couple of different things. First of all, it would direct President Trump to, quote, condemn abuses against the Uyghurs and call on President Xi to recognize the profound abuse and likely lasting damage of China's current policies, immediately close the camps, and lift all restrictions on and ensure respect for internationally guaranteed human rights across the region. But perhaps most significantly, the bill would also impose targeted sanctions on members of the Chinese government and other officials who have been involved in these abuses. This including those who have been credibly alleged to be responsible for human rights abuses in Xinjiang and elsewhere. It also, among other things, the act would direct the Secretary of Commerce to consider prohibiting the sale of U.S. products and services to the state agents in Xinjiang. And following all of this, we saw President Xi himself, in fact, say this.
Oh, bother.
I'm kidding, but also, I mean, the Chinese government did kind of respond that way. Specifically, the Chinese Foreign Ministry responded to the bill in a statement saying, the bill deliberately smears the human rights conditions in Xinjiang, slanders China's efforts in de-radicalization and counterterrorism, and viciously attacks the Chinese government's Xinjiang policy. It seriously violates international law and basic norms governing international relations and grossly interferes in China's internal affairs. The statement also going on to say that the situation is not about human rights, but about fighting violence, terrorism, and separatism, and claiming the international community speaks highly of their policies in Xinjiang. With the statement concluding, we urge the U.S. to correct its mistakes at once, prevent this bill from becoming law, and stop using Xinjiang-related issues to interfere in China's internal affairs. China will take further reactions according to how the situation develops. Now, all of that said, as far as what happens next, right, it's not going to happen today. It's because the House and the Senate passed different versions of the bill. They're going to have to work together to pass a final version, then pass that off to President Trump. And regarding that, as of recording this video, Trump and the White House have not said whether they would sign this bill. Though, if it's anything like the bipartisan Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act, I don't know how much Trump's supposed friendship with Xi or his opinion will play a factor. With this, of course, I would love to know your thoughts in those comments down below. And that's where I'm going to end today's show. If you liked today's video, hit that like button. If you're new here, subscribe, tap that bell to turn on notifications. That way you don't miss these weekday videos. Also, if you're not 100% filled in, you can check out that brand new podcast I did with Carson, or maybe you just missed yesterday's show, you want to catch up, you can click or tap right there to watch either of those now. But with that said, of course, as always, my name's Philip DeFranco. You've just been filled in. I love yo faces, and I'll see you tomorrow. Maybe. I'm just gonna shut the hell up and drink hot teas until then.